Hey, I'm really excited to have you to chat.
Me too.
Yeah, you're doing such an amazing thing with the HSK. I'm really excited to get into it. But first, could you introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Tony Pang. I'm from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
I would classify myself as an old-time serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Before EdTech, I was starting different kind of businesses, publishings, mobile phones. I can talk about that later on, hydroponics, and eventually settle down into EdTech. That's something that I'm looking forward to, doing my best here. Brought up in Hong Kong and went to the States for my college. Got my MA from Australia and also went to Peking University for EMBA.
Yeah.
And then started my career life back in Hong Kong again.
Amazing. I gotta ask, what like an undergraduate university student? Were you like on the playful side? Were you the studious type? Were you an achiever?
I went to Boston U.
Yeah.
It's across Charles River,
Yeah.
is Harvard, MIT,
Yeah.
all these elite schools, right?
Yeah.
So some of the studios type of BU students, they went to those Harvard, MIT to sneak into classes and listen to those lectures. I throw parties. I threw a lot of parties at Boston U. As a matter of fact, I was a couple of years, I was a president of the Hong Kong Student Association.
Yeah.
I was throwing parties and I invited all the people from these different schools, especially Wellesley, in a girls' school, right? If you want your party to have a lot of people, you need to invite the core, right? So yes.
Yeah.
So that tells you everything.
Yeah. Even when I was in Boston, the student associations they always run the big Chinese New Year, and then I would also go over to Boston College and everything to hang out.
I did my fair study. I did okay, but not the kind of top-notch students. So I never classified myself as the academically sound student, but I like meeting people.
Yeah.
I like talking to different people and learn from them.
Yeah. And what was your early career? So you graduated and you say you were doing many things. What was your early career?
After Boston, I actually went to Japan. I worked for Toshiba for a few years.
Yeah.
That was actually quite a remarkable and happy happy time of my life.
Yeah.
Because that time when Japan was actually at its peak, and now how old I am.
Yeah.
And as a foreigner, as a gaijin, you actually can get to know the language, the culture, and actually have some preference in some working projects too.
Right.
Then I returned to Hong Kong, started to think, I don't like to be a salary man, right? What can I do? Hong Kong is a very it's not that high-tech city, right? Back then in the 90s, it's still like financial and property related, real estate related. I'm an engineer by education, so I'm always wanted to do something. So at that time, that's actually close to the year 2000, there was a internet boom, right? So I started my first company called eSchool, which was a e-learning platform for corporate. It's a B2B. So one story I can share with you, back then when everybody looked B2C, eyeballs, clicks, and do evaluations, I did a pragmatic way of doing the B2B. So I went to jockey club, hospital authority, government bodies, and helped them to upshift to CBT and also using the web to do the training internally. I got pretty good business, cash flow, but not that exponentially like other B2C ones. And my investor back then, they pulled the plug after the bubble burst.
Oh no!
And the guy from France at that time, I didn't want to say the name, but he visited me, and then I was quite happy to show that. You see all the dead bodies out there. We are one of the few. We're breaking even too. Yeah. And he said, we didn't invest you because you want to get cash. We wanted you to be explosive.
Yeah.
I said that wasn't what I was expected.
Yeah.
So they pulled the plug. And I bought my shares back, and then I go on with that business.
Right.
And a few years later, I was able to exit to a listed company in Hong Kong. But anyway, that was one of the earliest career that I had. Then I went into publishing, traditional publishing, e-publishing, and also training.
Mm.
My education career started with Mandarin training, actually. When Hong Kong was returning to China, everybody wanted to pick up Mandarin as a language to communicate with the motherland. And there was quite a lot of demand. So I started with acquiring a small company, training company, and grew that company, became the largest one in Hong Kong. And then sold that to, a few years later, sold that to Washington Post. So that was some examples of my so-called successful exits. But my failure exits actually a lot longer. Just to name a few, I was one of the earliest ones to do hydroponic. When everybody's talking about green, healthy, and because I was in Japan, I was able to get some good technologies in hand. So that was one mistake. And also some other investment too. So basically, my career is not really focusing on just one area, but rather on depending on the flow and the opportunities of the market, and then I'll try my best.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is that then you have gone through all these experiences, and you're now working on the HSK. What is this HSK company that you're building?
Okay, the company that I founded is called IME International Mandarin Education. It's mainly promoting the use of EdTech to do assessment. Assessment, namely HSK, but there are also other assessments like OCT and others. But HSK is the most well-known one. So what happened was that when the demand for learning Chinese keep increasing as China global influence increase, then we see that a lot of assessments are not in place. So if you need to learn something, you need assessment to give you feedback so that you can know the strength of yourself so that you can improve. So we do that starting from primary schools, right? However, when you learn Mandarin Chinese, usually you don't get some kind of feedback. You get your feedback from your teachers, you get your feedback from the learning centers, but they're not standardized feedbacks. Unlike English standards, whereby the English testing standards been there a lot longer than Chinese assessment standards. And they're from Pearson, Cambridge, ETS. All these English-speaking countries, they also have their own, or universities, they have some kind of English assessments because it's their own mother tongue, right? They can easily create some kind of assessments. And they make that very accessible to many people. But however, for Mandarin Chinese, is outdated, I would say. Really using the so-called brick and mortar model, whereby relying on the individual mom and pops training institutes or the training centers. When the internet came about, of course, you have online learnings, but still, you don't get that kind of standardized tests available to them easily, because all these standardized tests are owned by the MOE, unlike the English one, which owned by different organizations. And the MOE's executions are very, I would say, I don't want to use the word old-fashioned, but they're not there to upkeep with the market trends, right? So they still rely on the brick and mortar model, and also relies on their local distributions, for example, Confucius Institutes, or to conduct the tests and to give feedback to the students and all that. Actually worked with MOE for many years, and I keep telling them, come on, use technology. Of course, they realize that they're all smart people. However, but if you ask a government to move forward to something new, they always hesitate until COVID came. When COVID came, it really cut off everything, right? Especially the brick and mortar model. So they realized, they need to do something on the internet. So that's why we work together and say, hey, let me do it. Okay, you keep your brick and mortar model. We don't need to disrupt them. I take care of the EdTech model, and then we can make Chinese assessment as easily as water. That anyone with a mobile phone can do their assessment. So at the end of the day, assessment is not hamburger. Like you give free hamburger, people will take it. I'll give you a free assessment today. Say, hey, why would I take it? You need certain kind of, besides distribution, you need marketing. You also need to change the image of Chinese being a difficult language, and you only learn it when you only need it when it's academically you need it. But actually, it's not. It's a very fun language to learn. It's a gateway to tap into the rich culture of Chinese 5,000 years of history, which, and also is a very convenient tools you can use to go to China to visit all these different remarkable places.
Yeah.
And of course, exchange with a lot of people speaking Chinese. So it is a very important soft skill tools.
Yeah.
And this is something that I would like to advocate, hopefully to have more people joining me, help me to distribute this assessment and even training to the individuals or to the businesses.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I remember many years ago going to Tsinghua University and studying for a semester and doing the HSK a long time ago, the Hanyu 水平考试. When you think about this test, obviously, I think it's interesting because obviously it's a certificate from a student perspective, also it's a certificate given by an authority, right? From that perspective. So from your perspective, do you feel like the world is moving on the consumer side into more certification, or do you think people are moving away from certification?
Depends which side of the globe you live in. In the east side, whereby, or we call it Asian in a way, we tend to accept assessment as a tool. And the parents, even the students, they got accustomed to assessments. So assessment so that I can get a level up, I get to know more and all that. So in this way, yes. But in the West Hemisphere, it might not be, because the culture assessment is, yes, you need assessment, but not in a way that is ranking assessment. It's not in a way that gives you pressure, right? You should be assessed without even knowing it. So it's different culture. So what I'm trying to do is to providing this through IME, providing assessment in a way that is very easy to approach. You can do it. You can do it the simple way, using it more fun. This is like a mobile app game, right? You just do some word testing and this and that. And, oh, okay. So know like your own weakness, and then you can improve a point. And without being pressured or studied, you don't need to really study an inch thick of curriculums before you take a test, okay? And also, but when you're really serious about learning these languages, and when you're really serious about learning Mandarin Chinese, you need to step by step move up, right? So during the midpoint of the assessment, it grows a bit more harder and harder, so that you do need to prepare for it. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is to accommodate the needs of the West and the East. So when people would like to just try it out what they know, they can easily assess it. They know, and they can use it for fun to assess it. When you want to seriously assess yourself, get a certificate, and use it for school or career, then you also can move up the ladder.
And I think what's interesting is that the world has also changed, right? I remember when I was being raised as a kid, my parents were like, we want you to learn English only, right? So they work very hard to put you in a bubble where you're primarily learning English to catch up with English, because English is the hottest language, obviously, at that time, right? And now, of course, I think people are moving towards more like that bilingual or multilingual, because they feel like children can do multiple languages as a benefit for them. I'm just curious, but what I've noticed is that people are not sure whether Mandarin is to pick as a second language, which is quite interesting. So when in the US, I think it was quite hot for people to learn Mandarin, but now it's seen as maybe it's not the right language, it's too difficult for kids to learn, maybe it's not relevant anymore. Like, how do you think about that, Chinese as a second language? How do you think about that?
I'll give you an example. When I finished college, I went to Japan. At that time, actually, I was learning Japanese. And a lot of people are learning Japanese back then, because of the economic influence. And that extend to its culture, its language, and also, of course, the food and everything. And so when you look at Mandarin Chinese, I think pragmatically you can look at it as a tool to connect. So we don't need to really draw into, okay, I don't like Chinese culture, I don't like this and that. You don't need to like it, you just use the tool.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's okay. I want to get a coffee, then I need a cup. Okay, then I need a coffee cup. So I think this is the pragmatic way of looking at Mandarin Chinese first.
Yeah.
We have English. We all learn English when we're young, and English as a global language.
Right.
It is not owned by Western countries, right? It's owned by everyone. Mandarin Chinese is the same way. As China grows, we're seeing China becoming a major economic powerhouse, and of course you expect its economic influence around the globe. So you need to learn this language so that you can communicate with them. So a lot of people say Chinese is difficult to learn. Forget it. I'm not going to make it. I'm not young anymore.
Right.
And my narrative is it's never too late, because you don't need to learn those characters. We have AI, we have secretaries to do this. If you just need to learn how to communicate, or orally, and it's just as easy as Japanese. They all have kanjis, or even Korean. Of course, compared to other languages like Spanish, French, it might be a bit difficult, but it's not more difficult than Japanese and Korean, which are very popular among Western people. I think if they're only targeting on communication, increase as a tool, I think that's already good enough. Not until they fall in love with the Chinese culture, really want to know, or got married with a Chinese partner, then they might need to learn more.
Yeah. Do you see that as a geographic dispersion or divergence in which countries are more interested in Chinese language as a second language, or regions?
Yes, I think right now the ASEAN countries, they are more covered. They're more influenced by the Chinese economy, or the Chinese tourists visiting them every year. I see they're more keen to pick it up. Chinese language as a second language other than English. The Western countries wise, of course, we have a lot of immigrants, and also we have a lot of people interested in Chinese culture. And I think it's already been there. You just need to assess it, make it accessible to them. My take is some countries might not be as popular as, say, the Asian countries, not because they don't have the demand, it's not available.
Interesting.
Okay, back then when I went back to China to start my business early, then people say, oh, McDonald's is here. People say, is they going to be a fail? Because Chinese people, they don't eat beef, right? There's no supply chain, it's not in the culture. Look at McDonald's. So what I'm saying is, if you have something that is make it available and easily accessed and affordable, the demand will be there. One thing to prove that is, if you go around the world to all these cities, even the smaller cities, you always have a Panda Express making some Chinese cuisine. Might not be very authentic as Chinese cuisine. So if no demand, it won't be there. So if we can make it available to them, I'm sure the demand will pick up. But the problem right there is it's very fragmented. And aggregating all this demand is very expensive. It's not business sensible. So that's why we need to use EdTech. Using that directly instead of assessments, it's always about you come to me at the specific time and place and do exactly what I ask you to do. Or I don't assess you or don't give you a certificate, right? We are doing differently. We say, oh, we go to you, we'll make it available to you anytime, anywhere at your wishes. And we also give you some preparation and make sure you're comfortable and get a better score. Even though if you score badly, it's okay. Come back to us, we can give you another one. So in a way, we hope to make this very friendly assessment, as I explained earlier, and also want them to get a taste of Mandarin. If you need to do assessment, of course you need to do some kind of learning, preparation. And so at least you get to know Mandarin Chinese. And then you get a taste of it, you don't like it, fine. But if you like it, you can move it up step by step. And when you move upway, then if you're seriously about learning this language, then you study more, and then and then we will give you hard enough assessment, make sure you're up to it.
On that note, starting to tie things together here, When was the personal time that you have been brave?
I think one of my I was making many as a home company, which most of them doing financial and also real estate back in early days. I was the one that made mobile phones. So mobile phones, I had to deal with Disney, and then I created. You can still Google it. World first Disneyfied mobile phone. It's called D-Mobile, D-M-O-B-O.
Yeah.
It was a smash. It was a success. Yeah. A lot of people ask me not to do it because being a small company working with conglomerate Disney, it's very difficult to work with them. And also I was creating something very new.
Right.
Even Disney was like, no, because usually when people say Disneyfied, it's like putting a sticker on the cup, putting a sticker on your shirt or the phone. That's Disneyfied. We rebuilt the whole thing from tooling, from design, from even circuit boards and the software. A lot of risk.
Right.
And but that proved to be a success.
Yeah, amazing. When you were making
By the way,
decision,
that was also a lot of luck too.
Yeah. So it was, obviously you're getting a lot of advice from different people. Some people said not to do it. How did you feel at that time? Did you feel very confident? Did you feel unsure?
Like yourself, you're an entrepreneur too. I think the nature of being an entrepreneur is you need to take risk.
Right.
But you don't take reckless risk.
Right.
You take containable, measurable risk. This is how you can excel yourself from others. When taking this risk, you always ask yourself, why you? Okay, all right, now we're looking at some new trends, AI and all that. Wow, let's do it, right? It's definitely the correct way of putting yourself into this track of career. But why you? Why am I better than others? Why would I excel others? So do I have enough resources, knowledge, and connections to make me stand out well enough to do it? A lot of people do the first one. It's, wow, that's the future, that's the direction. Let's do it and jump into the hot pot and then start to have some cutthroat competition later on. They don't cultivate or they don't think clearly about the core competitiveness that one can stand out in a longer run of competition. Right. So if you can figure out the second one, and then with some brave hearts, willingness to take some risk and perseverance, because you're gonna encounter a lot of difficult situations. You need to stick to it and work on it, and with some lucks, one might be able to get a good result. Yeah, amazing. On that note, thank you so much for sharing. I'd like to summarize the 3 big takeaways. First of all, thanks so much for sharing about the fact that you are a fun student in university, throwing parties, and not a very good student at a point of time. But I think it's interesting to hear how you even went through your early career, eventually land in education tech. Secondly, thanks so much for sharing about the HSK in terms of what the company is doing, but also how you see the future for Mandarin as a second language across the world. And lastly, thanks so much for sharing about your own entrepreneurial career in terms of how you think about risk and containing risk whenever you can. So on that note, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you, Jeremy, for interviewing.